Normally you get it in and have trouble with Wednesday, I don't care. Hey, Rob. Sweet. I know that one. I wouldn't even tell you. Hey? I wouldn't even tell you. Have I? I hope he glass if I know what it is. Those things up there, you have to do the box there. That's it. That's it. They'll just go away from this one side because they're going to keep rabbit.
Friends of them.
They'll take to the forest or there's about 2 or 3 seats left there. Quite good seats. Come the other side.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to St Andrews. But before we commence our proceedings this morning, as you may all be aware, Queen Elizabeth II died overnight, and so I think it's appropriate for us to have just a few moments silence before we commence our service. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And to quote the Queen, I think it's appropriate today, she said, "Grief is the price we pay for love." And I think that's why we're all here today. So now we'll listen to our opening music, Songbird by Eva Cassidy.
There'll be
no night without a dawning, no winter without a spring. And beyond the dark horizon, our hearts will once more sing. For those who leave us for a while have only gone away, out of a restless, careworn world into a brighter day. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to celebrate the life of Joan Jensen. With me today is Father Brian Lachine, who is a lifelong friend of Joan's, and it's our privilege today to celebrate this service together. So on behalf of Jenny, Sue, Ian, Russell, Peter, Julie and their extended families, welcome as we come together to thank God for the life of Joan, to mourn and honour her and to support one another in grief. Here we will face Joan's death, celebrate her life and show our love and support for her family. We will each have our own experiences of Joan's life and death with different memories, different feelings of love, grief and respect. So let us pray. Out of the simple quiet of the day, we bring our attention to Joan's memory. May the beauty and love of God be present with us here today as we part from Joan's physical presence. There is comfort in knowing that she's now at peace. Though we grieve her death, let us accept it and hold on to our memories as precious gifts. Amen. And now I'll call on Father Brian for our reading.
Before I do it, I think there's a table there with lovely symbols. Joan and Elaine dancing, the scripture, the doggies' caps, and or something there from the Lions, the present tape, a spoon, I think a recipe book, and an apron. She was rarely without it. The first reading comes from the book of Proverbs. Not quite sure, I looked up in Eileen's Bible to see when it was written, but it didn't say, but it's probably written 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. Who shall find a valiant woman? Who shall find a woman of strength? A pearl of great price is she. All who are with her have confidence in her and benefit from her experience. She initiates good, not evil, every day of her life. She does not neglect her tasks. She willingly works. Broad-minded, her understanding of life is a source of nature for her. She considers her opinions and then makes her move, and often makes them known, investing the experience she already has. She works diligently, taking pride in her inner resources and strengths. When her gifts are encouraged and their value affirmed, she will work wholeheartedly. She opens her heart to the needy. She is generous with the poor, yet she does not neglect her family's needs nor her own priorities. She is known for her dignity and strength, and she laughs at the days to come. Might have been a chuckle with Joan. She speaks with wisdom and she teaches in a kindly way. Those who are close to her praise her. Charm is superficial and beauty fades, but the woman who is wise is the one to be praised. May all value who she is, and may all applaud her integrity. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
This morning we'd like to read the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And now, I think today is a day of memories. It's a day of remembering. It's a day of acknowledging a long life. And so we have Father Brian here with us today, who is a lifelong friend of Joan, and he's going to present a eulogy for us.
Yes, it's my privilege to read this eulogy, which has been beautifully crafted by Julie, Joan's youngest daughter, and I thought it was quite lovely. In the main, I'll just read the text, but I may have a little aside once or twice. It's my honour and great privilege to deliver this eulogy today on behalf of Joan's loving family. The Glasheen, Somerville and Jensen families have been connected for more than 80 years, 86 to be precise. And we all go back to Preston. One of Joan's very first jobs was working in our grocery store, or school shop, or lolly shop. And in 1953, my father Jack had the proud honour of escorting Joan down the aisle at the double wedding of brothers Sydney and Lindsay to Elaine and Joan, next door, I think, in the church there, the old church. Over the years, our two families have remained ever so close and had the pleasure of enjoying many celebrations and milestones events together. I remember driving to Elwood Beach once, and we had a capital shout, so did old Slim, and halfway up the hill, Slim's boiled, and they blew the lid off the radio and it rolled all the way down the hill back to the Yarra River. Elaine and Joan, I think I called her Joan, I didn't really know Elaine, but probably because her mother was Eileen and older sister was Elaine. There was too many names similar, so she was known as Joan. She passed away peacefully at Waratah Lodge on the 29th of August, aged 91, after suffering a stroke on Tuesday the 23rd. And true to her wishes, Joan's final days were surrounded by those who loved her dearly, who took strength in reminiscing about Joan's life and her impact on so many. I would like to share some of Joan's story with you now. The hard-working, selfless, generous, passionate, loyal and strong-minded wife, sister, mother, grandma, aunt and friend that she was. Elaine Joan was born on the 11th of July 1931 at the Queen Victoria Hospital, Melbourne, to Thomas Joseph Henry Somerville, better known as Slim, and Eileen Condell Somerville, a middle sister to Aileen and Francis, now deceased. While Joan loved the fact that she was born on the same day as the champion hurdler Moss Trooper fell in the Grand National Steeplechase at Flemington, she was appalled to share a birthday with Gough Whitlam, as was her deep aversion to the Labor Party. So Joan opted to celebrate on the 12th day of July, the day afterwards. Never mind the confusion it caused for a family, particularly when it came to administration and hospital admissions. I'm sure she would be still chuckling over this. Joan grew up in Preston, Melbourne. The family lived in Ellison Street, Preston, and the three sisters attended the Tyler Street State School and Preston Girls' School, or High School. Interestingly enough, it's been closed for about 40 years, but it's reopened again, just behind Dr. Whatever his name was, he delivered me, I forget. Anyway, from a young age, Joan's flair and aptitude for cooking was evident as she worked in Mum and Dad's shop and helped her mother prepare dinner. Joan left, I'll stop there, I've got my own little departure. My parents, Jack and Mary, were married in Charlton in May 1936. They immediately came to Melbourne, where they purchased a shop in Tyler Street, Preston, from Joan's grandmother. I just called her Grandma Long. The shop was opposite the Tyler Street State School and was attached to a dwelling, and there was a sizable paddock alongside. In those days, there was no tuck shop at the school. In fact, I'm not sure whether any of the schools had tuck shop, but anyway, the children came to our shop before school, morning tea, lunchtime, afternoon tea, and after school. The shop was a fully operational grocery shop, was also a school shop where we sold exercise books, pencils, pens, ink, nibs, blotting paper, rulers, protractors, and as well as cigarettes and tobacco. The grocery lines included onions, potatoes, bread, milk, and a full range of grocery items. Dad even made ice blocks and occasionally cream blocks, with Joan's help, and made weekly home deliveries of grocery orders. He took the back seat out of the capital shed, it was a 26 model, pulled the seat out and we put the boxes of groceries in the back seat. Now, Joan's parents were known to my sister Margaret and I as Pop and Auntie, and lived just around the corner in Ellison Street, but we had a back gate which opened into the back of their property. I think it was the southeast corner of our property and the northwest corner of the Somerville property had a common denominator and a gate, and we could slip in and out as we wished. Joan was about 7 or 8 when I was born, and Elaine and Francie, together with Joan, were like our big sisters to Margaret and myself. We were often at Pop and Auntie's place, but the girls, and Joan in particular, spent a lot of time with Mum and Dad and Margaret and I. I think she was Margaret's babysitter or childcare worker, and she was Dad's shop assistant. Very good, okay. Now, Joan's father, Slim, was a policeman, and wanting a change, he accepted a transfer to the Orbost police station in 1949. After the bustle of inner city family, Melbourne, the family considered Orbost to be the end of the earth. But no, now we know it's the centre of the universe. But it was in Orbost that Joan made her home, from which she was reluctant to ever leave, and found true love, raised her family, formed lifelong friendship and long association with community organisations such as the Orbost Football Club, Lions Club and the Uniting Church. In 1952, Slim retired from policing to take up farming at Murray-Gower. Elaine and Joan remained in Orbost to work and boarded under the watchful eye of Mrs. Clifford's in McLeod Street. During this time, Joan was employed as a telephonist at the Orbost Telephone Exchange, a job she loved, and through which she met her lifelong friend Helen Murray. Joan's strong work ethic was acknowledged in 1952 what's that, only 70 years ago, with a letter from the Postmaster General's Department congratulating Joan on her splendid work during a particularly hazardous year marked by devastating bushfires and unparalleled floods. With the arrival of the Summeralls in Murrungow, young Sid, or Sydney, and Lindsay, Jensen, were soon inventing errands to come to Orbost and attending local dances in the hope of gaining the affection of Elaine and Joan. Lynn was the love of Joan's life, and they were married in November 1952 and remained happily married for 53 years. And that was the same celebration that Dad led Joan down the aisle. Joan, Lynn, Elaine and Sid were married next door at St Andrew's Church in a double wedding on the 6th of June 53. Joan was 21 years of age. She was married. When she was married, she was a picture of beauty and happiness, an ivory lace gown, handmade by Elaine. Many of the wedding guests remained constant throughout Joan's life. Maybe some of you are here today. I'm sure you are. The newlywed couples settled on the Jensen farm in Murrungow in a new house built by Lynn and Sid, but soon after, in 1954, Lynn and Joan went back to help work Slim and Eileen's farm in what was to become an enduring partnership. The Murrungow days were marked by hard work running the farm and post office, washing all the laundry by hand and preparing meals for seasonal vegetable pickers. There were many happy times as well with monthly church services led by Reverend Bill Gillard, in which the close-knit community would gather at the Jensens and annual Guy Fawkes nights with firecrackers. 4 of Lynn and Joan's 6 children were born while the family lived at Murrungow. I remember coming there at was it 59 Holden Ute, I think I went there, and Jenny and Sue were just little girls, but because Murrungow was so isolated, I had a friend with me, and they poked their head round the corner. They were like scarecrows. They were so frightened. I'd never seen human beings, let alone young boys. But that's how isolated Murrungow was. Sue was the last baby to be born at Murrungow in 1955, arriving more quickly and anticipated by the doctor. Before he could arrive from Orbost, Joan taught Jenny and Sue by correspondence, and Joan always ensured a disciplined approach to their schooling. I think they now call that homeschooling. But anyway, Slim and Eileen, Lynn and Joan, Jenny, Sue, Ian, Russell returned to Orbost to embark on a new venture, purchasing the Orbost guest house from Reg McAllister, which they operated till Lynn's ill health forced its closure in 1986. Joan was at the helm at Orbost House, she sure was, for more than 3 decades, working tirelessly in the business, in the kitchen, overseeing day-to-day operations, with the support of long-serving staff, Pat Hayne and Coral Hoffman. Throughout these years, Joan would begin her day at 4:45 a.m. in order to start serving breakfast at 5:45 and work through until 8 o'clock at night after serving a 3-course evening meal and preparing lunches for the next day. At its peak, more than 100 evening meals a night were served through a steady stream of CRB, PNG, railway drivers, timber workers. I think there were sleeper cutters, teachers and regular house guests. In addition, Joan also catered for weddings and Lions Club meetings. This long-standing relationship commenced in 1969 and continued for many years after the guest house closed, as it gave Joan purpose and helped combat loneliness after Lynn passed away in 2006. Of all the children, all of the children were put to work in Orbost House as Joan's way of keeping them under control and out of trouble. Bored was not a word that one used around Joan, as you would soon be put to work washing or drying dishes, changing beds or weeding the garden. At all this time, Joan was never seen without an apron, that's true, and rarely had a day off, even for the arrival of her youngest children, Peter and Julie. Holidays were few and far between, but Joan relished any opportunity to get away and enjoyed trips to Darwin, Adelaide, Perth, Narooma especially, Mackerel Beach in Tasmania. After the guest house closed in 1986, it was converted to a family home for Lynn, Joan and Elaine, and remained a gathering place for many more years. Never one to be idle, Joan kept herself busy by looking after her grandchildren, sharing her love of baking, test cricket and the plays in the afternoon. She would pop the grandchildren up on the bench and they would help cook and taste test. Joan also worked for several years at Janet and Karen Gargan's Gilson's coffee shop. She would happily make her way up the back lane to help out in the kitchen when needed. She loved keeping her hand in, being useful and earning, spending money to fund her purchases from the latest innovations catalogue. Joan was renowned for her hospitality. Say that again. She welcomed all and sundry and could rustle up a delicious meal for a crowd without fuss in no time. Her pinkies, jelly cakes, Swiss roll and yo-yos were unsurpassed. Joan's family were her greatest achievement and source of pride. She took the utmost delight in seeing her children grow and make their way in life, find their partners and have their own families. With a twinkle in her eye, a wry grin and a hearty chuckle, she would take pleasure in seeing the traits of her children passed on. While Lynn played the good cop, Joan was the disciplinarian, often wielding a wooden spoon and her commanding voice would put a halt to any nonsense quick and smart. For many years she was affectionately known as Growling Grandma, but as she mellowed over the years and with her well-stocked supplies of favourites never lint, she became known as Chocolate Grandma to her grandchildren, or to her great-grandchildren. To her grandkids, Joan was a constant source of love, laughter, support and fear at times throughout their whole lives. Joan was always forthright in her opinions, particularly when it came to politics, especially during the Rudd Gillard years. She was never backward in telling you if she thought you needed a haircut or you'd been in a good paddock. Joan held firmly to her views and would simply dismiss reasonable counter-arguments as nonsense, what rot. She was a loyal friend and an avid correspondent, exchanging letters and remaining in contact with one of her primary school friends for more than 80 years. Her annual Christmas letter was always highly entertaining. She treasured the letters and cards received from friends and family and held on to them. Across 4 generations, Joan has been the linchpin that brought everyone together. Joan's greatest joy was having the family all together on every occasion, whether it be a birthday, anniversary, Christmas or just a visit home, was a cause for celebration. She lovingly prepared for these events and cooked and cleaned her heart out, which meant you couldn't use the towels or touch any food in the fridge or pantry in the lead-up. I think mothers and grandmothers know that. She loved donning a Santa hat to hand out presents and whipping up birthday cakes using the Women's Day birthday cookbook as her inspiration. She loved staying up late with her sons and sharing stories, too afraid to go to bed in case she missed anything. After family, Joan's strongest passion was reserved for her beloved bulldogs. Yeah, well, that's true, but even before that, she was a dedicated Fitzroy supporter, like the Gorillas or the Maroons, they were recall, but because I can remember going to the Brunswick Street Oval with her and Dad to watch people like Alan Ruthven, Butch Gale, Bobby Ongarello, Tony Ongarello. Yeah, she was a great Maroons. She probably was probably disappointed they went to Queensland, so that's how the doggies got into the act. She wore her heart on her sleeve, and when it came to the Bulldogs, and would will them to victory each and every game. You can imagine the joy that the Bulldogs' 2016 fairy tale season delivered was even more special, as the Bulldogs were finally able to break their 62 premiership drought on the same day as Kirsty and Anthony's nuptials in 2016. Maybe she barracked for Footscray because of, I can't see him, I saw him, Mr. Austin. Graham was the great winger for Footscray, very accurate pass, delivered the ball with precision and accuracy. After being in the family for more than 50 years, the former guest house at 15 McLeod Street was finally sold in 2014. Joan wasn't sad at all, as she was so incredibly proud to purchase her first home, 77 Perry Street. She lived there happily for 4 years and took great pleasure in the garden. Joan enjoyed pretty good health over the years and actively avoided doctors. Joan detested needles with a passion. When a regular blood test was suggested, she'd say, "Why go looking for trouble?" When asked how she was feeling, she would always say, "I'm as good as gold, I'm as fit as a fiddle." Joan's latter years were in the care of Lockhill House and Waratah Lodge. Somewhat reluctantly, Joan moved into Lockhill House in 2018, the first time in her life where she could finally sit and do nothing. And while she would never let on, she did enjoy meal times with her friends and the activities including regular church services. Fortunately, she was still able to have a regular holidays at Perry Street with Jenny and loved being able to wander around the garden again. In January 2020, during the devastating bushfires, Joan was airlifted by Chinook helicopter to escape the hazardous smoke shrouding the town and was temporarily accommodated in a rather palatial nursing home in Sale. Joan was nonplussed by this turn of events and couldn't wait to get back to Orbost. Joan's family are indebted to the wonderful staff at Orbost Regional Health who provided compassionate care over many years. The family's lasting memories of Joan are simple: a hard-working, passionate figure of strength who was steadfast in her support and love of her husband and family, and who soldiered on, particularly when times were tough. Joan was selfless, always putting others' needs in front of her own, and extremely generous. She took great strength from her faith and long association with the Uniting Church. I can remember as a child, she and Elaine and Francie all went to the Presbyterian Church at Joffa Street. I think it was called Regent. They're now called Reservoir. It was Regent in those days, and I walked past it the other day. I took a photograph of what was the church in Joan's day, but it's now the hall, and next door there's a big church. It's no longer a Uniting Church, but a Orthodox church. But it's still, she'd be pleased to know it's still being used as a church. Joan would tell anyone who asked how lucky she was to have such a wonderful family, but really it is us who are lucky to have had her in our lives. She will always be in our hearts. And in closing, I would like to read this thank you on behalf of her grandchildren. Grandma, we thank you for the model of our hearts, for all you gave to us, from good old-fashioned discipline to loving, warm hugs and smiles. You made each of us feel special. and we all had our own special relationship with you. We will always cherish the wonderful memories you've left us, like coming home to Warwas for countless family occasions. It was always so special to visit Grandma, and we were always excited to come home and spend many fun times with the whole family. She made Christmas so wonderful. Thank you for every birthday card and cake, every phone call, your no-nonsense sense of wit, humour, love, laughter, faith and discipline. You were the glue that kept us coming together year after year, despite that wooden spoon or whack, and the reason why we all turned out all right. Thank you so much for everything. We were truly blessed to have you as our grandma, and we will miss you very much. Finally, I'd like to say that in the passage I read from Proverbs, describing the valiant women, and many of the virtues in that passage are seen in Joan, and we've just listened to them. I think one of the key things was hospitality, and St. Paul talks, he loved to talk about hospitality. One of the things he said was, make hospitality your special care, and Joan certainly did. All we need to say is that Joan lived justly, loved tenderly, and now she walks humbly with her God.
There were some great memories. I'm sure all of you could associate with some of those sentiments. And so now, continuing in the vein of memories, we're going to have a visual presentation, photographs. I'm sure you might even find yourself in some of them. So we're now going to have a look at Joan's life in film.
Until the supermarket flies from the windowsill, through the day-old tea from the cup, packed up the photo album Matthew had made, memories of a life that's been loved. Took the Garrett Wells in cars and stuffed animals, poured the old ginger beer down the sink. Dad always told me, don't you cry when you're down, but Mum, there's a tear every time that I blink. Oh, I'm in pieces, it's tearing me up, so I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mum. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. When God takes you back, He'll say hallelujah, you're home. Fluffed the pillows, made the bed, stacked the chairs up, folded your nightgowns neatly in a case. John said he'd drive, then put his hand on my cheek and wiped a tear from the side of my face. And I hope that I can see the world as you did, 'cause I know a life with love is a life that's been lived. So I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mum. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. When God takes you You were an angel in the shape of my mind. You got to see the person I have become. Spread your wings and I know that when God took you back, He said, hallelujah, you're home. Heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. You don't really care for music, do you? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty in the moonlight overthrew you. Well, she tied you to a kitchen chair. She broke your throne and cut your hair, and from your lips she drew hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Baby, I've been here before. I've seen this room and I've walked the floor.
I'm sure all of you have or have just lived through a lot of those memories. Great things for a great life. Grief is the price that we pay for love. We know that death is in the natural order of things. And as we reflect on this today, I'd like to use the analogy of a tent. I've heard of our bodies referred to as tents, but for a little while a tent can be a wonderful home. When a hiker's in the mountains, enjoying the wonderful outdoors, a tent can be exactly what he needs when he becomes weary and needs a place to rest and be refreshed. While tents are wonderful for their intended purpose, a person doesn't expect to live in a tent forever. Before long, a person longs to go home and live in a house, a structure that is much more permanent and sturdier than a tent. Jesus said, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. In my Father's house are many mansions or dwelling places. I go to prepare a place for you, so that where I am, there you may be also." Tents are good for a purpose and helpful for a season, but they can wear out. The fabric can become weak and torn, and the posts can collapse. And we're here today because Joan's tent has worn out. When someone we love passes on, there's naturally an element of sorrow. When you've been around someone for many years, or for however long you've been alive, that person can become an important part of your life, and you miss them when they're gone. But today, beyond our natural sorrow, there is a supernatural joy that comes from knowing the reality of the new birth. An earthly light has gone out, but where Joan is, no earthly light is needed. Shining brighter than the sun is her radiance, and her face is now glistening in that glorious light. So we come to the end of a journey. It's a good day. An earthly journey has ended. A heavenly residence has been established. Weeping may endure for the night. Our human emotions sometimes need a release, but joy comes in the morning. And now we'll listen to a piece of music which I'm sure is familiar to you all, Amazing Grace. And as we listen to that, I'd like you just to reflect on your experience with Joan and to just relive some of those experiences as we sit quietly for a couple of minutes. And so, ladies and gentlemen, there is a time where we must say farewell. God, who holds us with arms of love and compassion, at this moment of farewell, we offer to you all the regrets, the pain, the if-onlys, knowing that you will surround Joan and us with your loving and forgiving presence. We hold in our thoughts and hearts those most touched by Joan's death, especially her family and all the members of their extended family. We cannot pretend to make amends for your loss, but we who are here and those who I'm sure absent are thinking of you can give you the continuing promise that we shall walk quietly beside you, seeking to understand the depth of your loss and giving you encouragement and support. May you also find comfort in one another. May the spirit of the hope of life emerge in your lives in the days ahead. And may we who love and care for you show our tenderness, care and generosity. That concludes the part of the service here in the church today, ladies and gentlemen. I would invite you to continue with us to the All-Lost Cemetery for the conclusion of the service. Thank you.
Watch your heads on that back door, and Gavin will take the weight. Ladies and gentlemen, can I ask you to come out? Just allow people to shade the tree there.
I thought you'd massacre it too much.
Somehow, why don't you tell me?